Hey guys, it's Misha and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about a very pressing issue, which is the rise in individuals who are becoming estranged from their own family members. I found this article I want to check out that talks about why this might be happening and also how a lot of people from Gen Z, no surprise there, are the ones that are completely cutting off ties from their family. And we also see a lot of this on TikTok, another big surprise of people talking about
Misha. First of all, what do you care? They're not your family, one. And two, I find the fact that you're concentrating on parent-child, most of all, really odd. Um, Only because even the biggest expert who find problems say that one of the reasons why parental-child relationships are in there is because it's the most tumultuous and chickiest out, in society. I mean, most people accept the fact of how tumultuous it is to the point that they understand that since children are forced into a relationship with their parents, children to have the right to retroactively ratify that relationship as they grow older, as they grow more boundaries. But yeah, let's go on with
warning family transphobia, talking about cutting off family.
I blocked my mom on Facebook this morning. She sent me a video of some woman who had detransitioned or regretted her surgery or something. I don't remember the exact context. And she's just talking about how her bottom surgery was genital mutilation and all that nonsense. And so I had enough of it.
But I can understand the mother's concern. I think any procedure is concerning, is, stressful.
And I told my mom, this is not how you have a relationship with me. You do not send me stuff on the fears and worries you have of my transition and how it's dangerous and how I might regret it.
No, of course not. You just have to validate them no matter what, even if you are, in fact, concerned, and rightfully so, because there are so many complications that can go along with the surgery.
I blocked her. I am going to block her if she tries to call me or text me. I'm done going no contact, but hopefully a couple years of her not seeing me will help her get her shit together.
Because your mother doesn't want you to become a detransitioner that regrets the surgery, is that really a reason to block her?
I don't need you to tell me any of that. I know every risk that I possibly can know.
And why is risk in quotes? It's a risk.
3 things I wish I knew in my early 20s. Cut your family off. I know you said that in the last video. I know what I said, and I said what I said. This is for the people that were commenting saying, oh, you can cut off a couple cousins, but your mother and your father, baby, they can go too.
Why are we telling 20-year-olds this?
Have you ever? So this is really weird because you're not allowing a lot of room for nuance. You don't know what she means. You're just taking general statements and personalizing them to what your experience is. Well, all you know when she says that her mother may very easily be, or their mother, depending on what the pronouns are, may be very easily pushing this narrative of detransition on them to stop them, in which case it's guilt tripping of an adult by a parent who should instead just be supporting them in where they are and helping them find where to go next. This is basic 101, and you just step in there no, I am going to graft this to what my experience is, which is what you do. And it's no, you don't know what she's going through. You don't know what the second person there who says you can even excommunicate your parent is going through. And you're making all these snap judgment. Well, all you know, they could be saying, you know what? If your family is a real problem, it's okay to just walk away, which is healthy advice. It's not to say you should just abandon your family over feelings. But yeah, it's okay to say walk away if that's the only option. And for a lot of these people, it is. But you keep on going with gaslighting. As for the rest of this, I just want to deconstruct a few things because while your personal experience is the way it is, I want to point out this country by majority has always been center right to right leaning. Any serious, like, left leaning progressive movement in this country have always been shut down with violence from the right. From the, like, movement out of slavery when the working class united with black people who were former slaves to the uniting against, like, segregation. Like, so many people died. They were killed. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. It's just a thing. So it's kind of odd to say you were. So yeah, it's odd that you would say you were indoctrinated to the left because in this country we have always had a mock left that is a, like, party that has miniature left leanings but really doesn't go left per se, but just stops us from going further right. And then when they get in power, they stop us from going either direction, really. And you can see this when the United States is compared to its relatives in mainland Europe, where they have gone through this progression and evolution over thousands of years, and how far left even the real right conservative parties like the Tories have gone over there. We can't even. I mean, the Democrats literally don't even touch the most right-leaning, like, party in other conservative countries, like France and England, that still have policies further left than any, or actual promises further left than anything we have in this country, which includes the right to be treated like human beings and to put human life over corporations. And also, it's like we have a really bad dialogue of what it means to be left. We pose a lot of things as right, like, centered when they really aren't. The portrayal of them in this country is misleading. And the fact of the matter is, like a lot of that portrayal is simply to make money, not to
Carolina, where she was expected to attend church multiple times a week, accept Jesus Christ as the way to salvation, and honor her mother and father. The last point was right there in the Ten Commandments. So when Jordan made the decision to stop talking to her dad, the choice stood in defiance of the lessons of her upbringing. But it was also because of them. She was tired of being told that women should submit to men, a belief ordained by the religion in which she was raised. She was finished obeying. Decided to leave the church at 32. Tension rose between her and her father because their parents were married. Jordan says she held back from cutting her dad off despite the fights they had about religion, politics, and her exit from the church. But after one last explosive call, Jordan hung up the phone and had a moment of clarity. She realized she was finished, done. Looking back, she says he's lucky she waited that long. While he called and texted her repeatedly, Jordan didn't budge. It's an extreme privilege to have a great relationship with your adult children, she says. I was always hoping, while we weren't talking, that he would take my silence as a cue to get himself together and to apologize to me. I mean, I wish there was more context. I wish she went into detail about what he said that warranted such a response, like to just never talk to him again. Because right now it's sounding like because she is not religious, because he is, having these arguments with her about religion and politics, she decides to just cut off ties. Then he was hospitalized. She went to go see him. She thinks she did the right thing, but part of her grief is accepting that she'll never know if given more time he could have ever changed. Well, you would know if you talked to him.
Okay, see, this is where I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. I'll never talk in your personal experience, but you just expose yourself. This video is really an agenda to push rightist politics. And see, as someone who's truthfully on the left, like, not the mock left, like, I'm here to benefit myself and grift of this stuff, is like, really where this is at. And you are here to benefit off of these people and how they suffer in life, which is really messed up. Misha, like, get a grip. There's no such thing as gender ideology. No one's praying to a gender god, but you know what type of god they really are? The one in the Catholic Church. And as far as excommunication, you do it on a micro level when you walk away from a disagreement. When you say, yeah, I'm gonna walk away from this disagreement, or, you know, this person's getting too toxic, so I'm just gonna leave them completely for now until they get right back in the right headspace. Those are micro levels. When we talk about excommunication, not always, but usually it's because the levels have reached such a astronomical amount that there's no way that person's going to have a healthy relationship with their family. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm not going to address your comments about friendship and that on the front of this video. I'm gonna wait to the end, only because I'm gonna add charts and real statistics about childhood trauma and such, which actually eviscerate what you're trying to sell here. Okay, so let's quickly address Jordan, because I want to get over this. It's sort of funny you mention nuance now, when the actual offense is so extreme. I mean, they literally said they waited as long as possible, and the article said that they were 32 at the end of this. So it's not just, they're not a Gen Zer, they're not a teeny bopper just walking out in their family. They're dealing with highly toxic, misogynistic attitude from their own, parent, and especially their father, who's basically communicating them to they have to be subservient to men, which is a really horrible take as a woman. If my father told me that, yeah, I'd have a big problem on it. Would it mean I walk away? That's debatable, but still, I mean, you can't honestly say you're being rational when you, allow so much to happen to get here. Well, you are legitimately saying, maybe if she waited longer, where's the threshold? Does she do it when she's 60 where it's irrelevant? Does she do it when when he's actually beating her to obey a husband? Where's your threshold that you're saying, okay, now just stops being about nuance and it's a clear, concise? Because in my mind, if someone's telling me the way to live and they're not being reasonable, which again, both of us are outside the nuance of this conversation that this person had with their father. But yeah, that's highly toxic. That's it's toxic. There is no other way to that. And if it was such an extreme where it impacted her boundaries, her mental health, how she felt as an adult, and how she operated in real life, then yeah, that's a problem. And she should very much walk away from it if it means, she'll be a healthy, productive adult in society that can lead her life responsibly. And plus, as a parent, that should be your first and foremost one. And this is why I'm saying nuance is important. Your take on this is completely the parent's always right, the child is always wrong. But no, sorry. You have to allow for the child to completely and healthily develop. But yeah, you do have an idea, so this is intellectually dishonest. You're saying oh, I don't know. She told you literally what his stance was on how he saw a woman. So this is more than just simply political and religious. The viewpoint he had of women being autonomous and independent, because she says it clearly in there. So the fact you have to make it into something like out here, where it's just, oh, she didn't like religion, he was religion. No, there was none of that, like, tit for tat in there. It was, she gave legitimate reason. And the fact you have to walk over it shows just how much you're grifting off this story and being dishonest.
Ice cream. I opened it up, licked it.
Let's go.
I decided to drink mouthwash and gargle it back into the bottle and put it back on the shelf.
It's a minty and fresh.
The way you spit it back. Classic.
We didn't do anything wrong because when we did our videos, we actually paid for the products.
We did this because we want our faces out there.
We wanted attention. There was literally no other reason besides us literally just wanting to be famous. We're definitely not gonna stop here. If anything, we're just gonna get more and more followers. I mean, I don't talk to my family.
Why not?
They're irrelevant.
They're irrelevant?
None of them have followers. If they got followers or got rich, I'd probably talk to them again.
Now, hang on a minute. Did you just say I don't talk to my family because they don't have followers?
If they had followers, they'd be here right now. Can anyone tell me like what I would talk to my mom about if she's not gonna be making me relevant?
Yeah, like, hi, Mom.
Now I have a career and I'm famous. Like, that's what happens when you get famous, you cut people off.
Famous? Who are you?
Seriously?
Everyone's upset with it, maybe because you guys aren't relevant either, so you don't understand.
And I know they're probably putting on this character and
Okay, this is legitimately the honest take for a few reasons. One, they legitimately pay for products, so no one's being, like, abused there. It's just set up to look like something. Two, they admitted they're in this for followers. Three, they're doing exactly what you're doing in this video. They are misleading the public into something in order to get followers by grifting off other, like, people and attitudes. They are legitimately doing the same thing you're doing to the same extreme. In another fashion, albeit, and if you turned off for it, that's a personal thing. I wouldn't, like, do that stuff, but again, they're doing nothing that you aren't doing in this video, so really I'd take. And plus, honestly, like, this whole, like, this whole, like, pantomime that, no, that's wrong. This whole farce, this whole, like, playing to the masses thing you're doing here. Oh, you're irrelevant, I'm irrelevant. Like, look at me up here, I'm irrelevant just like you. You're doing exactly the same pandering as they're doing. And then you're like, this is an oddity. Yeah, it's can be. And you're just as much an oddity. So, your point being invalid. And it has, here's the best part of it. It has no relevance to the video. They're doing nothing celebrities on the left and right haven't done to their families over time. Like, you can go back and forth and you'd see it.
just lose their meaning because, you were misgendered last week. That was traumatizing versus like child abuse. And also I wonder if because there are higher rates of anxiety and depression, just mental health problems in general among Gen Z, does that make them less equipped to deal with these sorts of conversations and fights sometimes? Because while yes, overdiagnosis happens, a lot more people are going to therapy now, which we don't know if that's really a good or bad thing because a lot of these therapists, they're not good therapists. And so, yes, that's all true. But at the same time, I do think that technology and social media especially does play a role in these mental health problems we're seeing, especially, in the younger population, in the younger generation. So I wonder how that impacts an individual's ability to sit down and have.
So it's like, it's amazing how intellectually dishonest you can be in this video. But it's even more than that. The concept of family first is a fairly recent one. Prior to, like, the events of, like, the past few hundred, maybe even several hundred years, the idea of family first very much wasn't there unless you were below a certain economic, like, class. And the reason for this, the reason for family first, had nothing to do with supporting each other and had everything to do with economics. Because the more kids you had, the more kids, like, you had to work the field, let's say, the more you could produce, the more money. And the more infighting there was, such as with the feudal lords, the masters, the kings, the merchants, the more likely it was you were to lose people and support for making a living. So, yeah, that family first take is bad, and the expression we often use to misrepresent, like, family values historically, blood is thicker than water is actually not the expression. And it's very important you put the actual expression in it and actually explain it. The actual expression is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. And you have to understand this from its origin. When it was made under Norman Christian Catholic values, it was made during a time when feudal lords worked hard to keep people under them poor and subservient, and whose own family values were non-existent, like literally stab their own brother if it meant advancing the interest of their own kingdoms. So what this expression comes from is the blood covenant of Christ, meaning the Christian empire you were serving, whether it was the Normans, the English, the French, is more important than even your own family. That's what the whole expression is and meant. The modern interpretation was brought there by capitalism to serve as a lie to obfuscate what actually is there. Capitalism is proto-feudalism. And it was meant to, like, sort of shift the topic, but I'm getting out of this because that isn't really the point of this video. My point is, this concept of family first is fairly modern. And even if it in its modern construct, a lot of people take it as meaning family is property, commodity, to earn, to gauge money and income, which is what family was all those years ago. And we don't discuss this historically, but we have to, because in the case of feudal lords, it just meant the people who would carry out your dastardly deeds for you. And if they didn't, you could stab them in the back. With family below a certain economic level, it changed a bit, but the meaning was more generally, if you had more kids to work the farm, you could gain more income and therefore struggle less. And again, this works into the whole idea of family as property. But if we honestly take ourselves as fully grown adults and put this like context honestly where it should be, we should be shifting the concept of family as property to family as family, and as someone we do care for and support no matter what. And that's where the issue becomes really nuanced, truthfully nuanced, because a lot of these people do not have that support, either emotionally or physically, or like in any way. And so for them to walk away from their family and disown them, there's nothing wrong. That's completely normal. They have to be healthy, happy, productive individuals in their own rights. And the only way that happens is if they create the environment that's conducive to that. The problem with these discussions quite often is people try and take it in the exact opposite direction, which you can't. None of what you're saying, like, none of you mean exactly what you're saying. If you're saying you do have a supportive family, if you really change your mind from this to that sort of politics, fine. But then you can't, like, corner anyone else in to change their mind. You can't do what you don't want done to you. I mean, simple, it's a golden rule, but again, like many other social nuances, no one gets into it these days because it makes the conversation uncomfortable. And the true conversation is the family dinner table has become politically dichotomous to extremes. For one reason, people in general are becoming more extremes. But also, this is impacting the levels of society which we didn't see before, which are now coming to the surface, and not all of them have the same exact narrative. And to say they do is highly, highly suspicious and completely disingenuous on you or any other person's part. Now, I promised to put charts on here, and I will. But I want to make this part of the video to close up what I was addressing to the way you finished. In addition, I want to address this part of, like, therapists. We do have a problem with people in the medical field and in therapy grifting like crazy. And this just does it, like, this whole thing, try it, people. No. We have to be completely honest that this hits everyone. There are girls out there, cisgender, born, biological females, who have breast implants, whatever surgeries at extremely young age when it's unnecessary. And there's also, like, girls, again, not trans women, not transgender girls, just girls, in your words, who are also going through problematic therapy where it's leading to catastrophic results. It may not be the surgery in the way we see it, but if they get implanted with toxic breast implants instead of getting, like, mastectomies, is that any better? See, the point is, this whole conversation is centering around the most marginalized minority and then saying we have to stop it because of this. And no. And similarly, this whole conversation around family is centering around the nuanced topics which we have not had in the public sphere before now. The amount of abuse and neglect happening with children has never been out in public to this degree, and we're seeing a lot of things which we just turned our heads to before, and we need to address it. We need to address these elephants in the room, not just the ones you can grift on to make yourself popular. Now, as promised, the charts come next. I'm trying to separate, like, childhood trauma from, at first, childhood experiences, for which I'll get into, but they're separate. And as you notice, like, the traumas I marked in red are the ones that have significantly gone up, and the ones in yellow are the ones that have only moderately gone up. Now, at first, childhood experiences are complex and multiplicitous, and it's important to note that while every childhood trauma is an at first childhood experience, not every adverse childhood experience is a childhood trauma. Now, someone who has had a multitude of adverse childhood experiences, but also is an ENTP who processes these things on a purely like informational, factual, statistical basis, my fallback is not just to process my feelings, actually, usually does that as well, but to process the facts and the basis for all these things, and seeing how they conclusively match my experiences and the experience of others I know, which are varied, who had similar adverse childhood experiences. It's also important to realize that these adverse childhood experiences not only have a negative impact on psychological health, but also endocrinological and like neurological and even physiological. Like, it has been known that it can affect the development of the endocrine system and result in diabetes, for example. This means everyone will have the same negative side effects by far. But also, it's not exactly the exception either, and the fact it has generational impact, meaning not just the person, but their children, grandchildren, not just metaphysical impact, like psychology, but also actual impact on physiology of one person and their children and their angst and ramifications far dire. Now, again, this is not saying this applies to everyone, of course not, but it does apply to a huge portion of society. I mean, especially if you consider 60% experience childhood trauma, and the amount of people who suffer ACEs is higher, makes it even more disconcerting. And to make clear, childhood trauma is not the only result of ACEs. Also, you have toxic stress, which is usually the result of things like parental gaslighting, invalidation of a child's feelings or emotional state, emotional neglect, even physical neglect. And again, all these things result in problems with the child development, which can lead to really serious health consequences of the physiological. Now, types of these adverse experiences include physical abuse, verbal abuse, which includes name-calling and condescension, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, and others which are too numerous to name and too complex, like racial ACEs. And plus, the website I'm utilizing for these examples is misbehaving, so I can't get past number 8. It's also important to realize that, like I said before, and I'll repeat, nearly two-thirds of the American population, and not just now, but towards the past, has reported actual adverse experiences and trauma. But that isn't scaring enough, or as if it wasn't. It's literally been on a steady increase since the 1940s, when the Great Depression started this all. Look at this chart, which displays a significant climb over the decades and even projects its significant future climb going forward into 2030, actually shows how desperate the situation. While I'm not pointing at this to be an alarmist, even the most sane, sedate person seeing this can see reason for child clothing. While you may not completely what I represent or what I'm saying, you have to admit it's highly troubling. And in doing so, you have to admit the failure of your grift on these people. The fact of the matter is, the first childhood experiences and childhood trauma has only gotten significantly up during the years. And the fact that a lot of these things are from like families that had generational trauma we hadn't seen before and hadn't seen at these levels is pretty damn scary. So when you speak on this, just speak like you understand the nuance from afar, like you did for this whole video. You are actually saying you don't care about children, effectively. And I'm not saying that to be a grifter, to be funny, to be popular, to sort of drag you. I'm saying that because that's the truth. Because your first responsibility as a parent is to go forward and actually support your child no matter what. And that doesn't mean give in to them, but it does mean to give them support, and where your guidance has been accepted but also declined, it means you have to move on. And a lot of these videos relate parents that seem to have not gotten that message and who keep wanting to gaslight their children into doing what they want, into having their kids be Xerox copies of those parents, which is a form of emotional abuse. And just to highlight this, I won't go through study after study from here on in, because honestly, I've read through like more studies than you can imagine. This video would at least be 10 hours long if we went through all the studies. I have in the past to now to get to this point. So, the one thing these studies held conclusively is the most important thing of like these at first childhood experiences is the stage it happens in and how it affects development. They found, however, the different types, sexual, physical, emotional neglect, physical neglect, and so on, matter less. Now, it doesn't mean to say that the different types don't have the direct impact that matters. It says, over the long term, the overall consequences as that child grows, the difference between them matters less because they all come to almost the same conclusion in the end. They all result in the same type of like PTSD, CPTSD, developmental problems, physiological developmental problems, and so forth, and health risks. If not the same, then very similar. And that is the end, like, thing of it. So, when you just constantly, like, children should not have the right to disown their parents or do this like you're doing. You're muting that whole population, which traditionally has been shoved out to the corner of the earth, where these abuses not only happen, but continually are fostered, in addition to their traumatic responses, which allow them to go into further abuse. In closing, as a responsible person, you should definitely take this video down. though I doubt you will. But I'll leave my video up as an indication of just how bad your take is and just how anti-children, anti-family it is. Because a truly responsible family would want to foster growth that required conversation and openness from both sides, not just one.